You ever pay attention to how the second you don't care as much what the other person is going to think about you, the vibe of the whole thing shifts? The instant you withdraw your attention from them, they suddenly start noticing you. That's not magic, that's energy, because energy follows attention. Most individuals do not know how much authority they relinquish by always keeping an eye on someone else's opinion, on what they do, on how they feel about them. You find yourself living in response rather than creation. You begin defining your value upon another person's validation, and the next thing you know, your joy is in their hands rather than yours. When you take that same energy and direct it inwards, everything starts to change. When you cease to care about bothering yourself to be enough for someone, you begin to become enough for yourself. You start to walk differently. Your tone shifts, your posture improves, your energy increases. You cease to seek and begin to claim. And people sense that. They may not consciously know it, but they feel it. They feel you're no longer holding your breath for their permission to be worthy. You're not pursuing, you're selecting. That's when they begin to lean in. You see, the universe respects focus. If your energy is forever fixed on, I hope they see me, I hope they value me, you're sending lack. You're saying, I'm not enough yet. And life mirrors that back. But when your energy shifts to, I'm whole, I'm aligned, and I'm focused on becoming the best version of me, that's when attraction happens, not just in relationships, but in every area of life, because people are drawn to certainty, to peace, to groundedness. Consider it, you've likely had this happen in small ways. You text someone less, and then they're contacting you. You begin to align your attention with your goals, and lo and behold, the people who weren't paying attention to you begin to notice. That's not coincidence. That's alignment. You removed your attention from needing and focused it on being. And that's the most powerful place you can operate from. When you stop caring so much, it does not make you cold and emotionless. It simply makes you stop allowing someone else's inconsistency to dictate your emotions. It means you have learned how to master the one thing you can always master, your energy. And when you do that, you begin to see that peace isn't in the getting, it's in the knowing who you are when you don't. That's when life lightens up. That's when your self-confidence isn't tied to conditions. And here's the kicker, when you stop putting out there, people notice the withdrawal, they feel the lack of your presence, and out of that quiet, something strong occurs. They begin to know your worth. Because when you were there all the time, giving all the time, doing your best, they were unable to see the comparison. But now they can. They feel what it's like not to have your energy occupying their space. That's when their mind starts to shift. But your goal isn't to make them realize anything. Your goal is to realize your own worth so deeply that whether they change or not doesn't matter anymore. You've shifted from trying to be seen to truly seeing yourself. That's power. That's freedom. That's where everything starts to turn in your favor, not because you're forcing anything, but because you've finally stopped pouring energy into what doesn't serve you. So keep in mind, energy follows attention. If your attention is on them, you lose power. If your attention is on you, you regain 10 times more. And once that occurs, all around you adapts to the new frequency you're working at. You won't have to pursue what's yours. You'll draw it to you by how you hold yourself, by how you guard your peace, by how you've lost all interest in all the wrong things. You see what's funny? The instant that you release all attempts to control everything, the instant you actually let go, something amazing occurs. People begin approaching you. Opportunities begin to unfurl. Energy resumes. Because detachment is not indifference, it's about power. It's about standing so solid in your value that you no longer have to cling for results. You cease to chase, and in the quiet, all the things meant for you start to realize your space. That's what true magnetic power does. What most people misunderstand is that detachment is not caring. Detachment is to care deeply and not lose yourself in the process. You can love someone and not try to possess them. You can want something and not obsess over when it will happen. The fact is, the more you cling to something, the quicker it slips away from your grasp. Energy can't breathe when it's smothered by control. But the instant you let go, you leave it room to come back to you on a more powerful, aligned basis. Consider this: each time you tried so hard to get someone to recognize your worth, did it just drive them further away? You texted more, clarified more, did more. And the more you did, the less they appeared to care. But when you finally got exhausted, when you told yourself, you know what, I'm done trying to prove stuff, something changed, suddenly they paid attention. Suddenly they needed your attention again. That's the paradox of detachment. When you stop giving out of fear, your presence becomes a luxury, not a given. The energy of control always pushes away. It's heavy, it's nervous, and it shouts, I need you to fill my emptiness. But the energy of detachment is peaceful. It whispers, I'm fine either way. And that serenity, that peace draws others to you. They can sense it even when you don't say anything. It's confidence without swagger, strength without aggression. It's you being okay with walking in alignment versus desperation. And here's the thing that most people don't get. When you let go, you leave space for someone else to move up. As long as you're taking care of both parts of the dance, it's all about you. You're doing the work, providing the energy, bearing the emotional load. There's no space for someone else to get closer to you. But when you pull back, when you release the need to control, you create a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. Something has to fill that space. Most often, that person who used to take you for granted begins to lean in. But more to the point than that, detachment leads you back to yourself. It reminds you that peace is not something you receive for accomplishing what you want. It's the beginning of beginning to attract what is aligned. When you can view a circumstance and smile and say, if it's for me, it'll find me, that's not weakness, it's mastery. You've moved from pursuing energy to selecting energy, from requiring love to being love, and that's when others' minds begin to shift because they can sense that something's different about you, that you no longer work from lack. You've quit begging for attention and began commanding respect through your vibration. You're no longer playing the game. You've upgraded. That level of detachment doesn't repel people. It attracts the ones that resonate with your peace. So when you release the need to control results, you take back your power, you stop living as a puppet on someone else's strings, and that quiet self-confidence, that ease of flow, that's what makes you magnetic, because when you're in a world filled with noise, the one who is calm, centered, and unattached always gets noticed. It's human nature. We want what feels in short supply, and we ignore what feels in abundance. That's the psychology of why individuals tend to change once you close up. It's not that they changed overnight. The worth they previously took for granted is only apparent in its absence. The law of scarcity is not solely about economics. It's about energy, focus, and emotion. When you're always on call, always available, always responding the instant the phone rings, you inadvertently instill people with the idea that your time is unlimited. And everything that feels unlimited begins to lose its value. When you fail to appear at command anymore, when you fail to make yourself someone's safety net who never thought about how much you were offering, that's when they begin to notice. They begin to understand that your time, your energy, your heart was a privilege, not a right. You see, we exist in a world where humans don't necessarily value what's consistent, they value what's earned. As soon as your presence is rare, it creates awareness. All of a sudden, they replay what you said, they recall your generosity, they notice the space where your energy once resided. It is not about playing games, it's about respect for human nature. When you give boundlessly, without limits, you take away the natural rhythm of give, and take that breeds appreciation. All healthy relationships, romantic, professional, or personal, prosper on balance. When you're doing all the emotional work, the giving is unsighted. Scarcity brings perspective. The pause brings reflection. It gives the other person the space to realize, wait, that person's consistency was rare. Presence wasn't ordinary. Consider it the same reason we're aware of the sun most when it's setting, or of the quietest after the storm. Human beings become aware of your worth most when your energy is no longer in constant saturation of their space. When you create space, you don't punish, you let reality educate what words could never accomplish. You provide the other individual the blessing of missing out on what they previously took for granted. But here's the key: your reason for pulling back must come from strength, not bitterness. You're not withholding your energy to get a reaction, you're protecting it because it was being spent on people who didn't value it. That's self-respect. That's emotional maturity. The difference between manipulation and mastery lies in intention. One tries to force an outcome, the other simply creates space for truth to reveal itself. And when you're living out of that space, something truly remarkable occurs. People shift their behavior based on your energy. The very same ones who shunned you begin to question what happened. They second guess their decisions, question their distance, and quite often come back a little more awake. And even if they do not, it doesn't matter because your self-worth is no longer tied to their approval. You've already understood that being scarce is not about being out of reach, it's about being purposeful. The law of scarcity is a two-way street. It makes them appreciate you, and it makes you appreciate your own presence. You begin to realize that your love, your time, your energy are resources, and not every person merits unfettered access to them. When you accept that reality, you cease to overgive and begin to decide where your energy goes. You cease to beg to be heard and begin to be discerning about who gets to share in your light. That's when the magic happens, not because you're being gamesome, but because you realize this, you are hard to get, not because you're elusive, but because your peace, your expansion, and your heart are irreplaceable. And after you start treating them like that, everyone else will. There is a point when you become exhausted, not exhausted in a weak sense, but in an emancipating one. You become exhausted with trying to control everything, exhausted with questioning what they're thinking, exhausted with questioning why they pull away and return only when convenient. And that's when you cease to feed the cycle of control, because that's what it is, a cycle. The more you love controlling what they do, how they feel, or what they choose, the more your peace becomes held hostage by their unpredictability. You begin to live on emotional standby, anticipating their next step to dictate how you feel. But the reality is, the moment you cease doing that, you begin taking back your power. You cease to hand someone else the wheel of your mood. That's what control is. It's a secret power swap. You're convinced that you are acquiring it by overthinking and bending yourself to their response, but actually you're giving it away. Whenever you attempt to forecast or control another person's actions, you offer them your peace at collateral. When you take away the feeding, you move from reaction to response. You cease becoming part of their emotional go round and begin placing your feet firmly on ground. You become clear on things, not through the filter of fear or attachment, but through the filter of reality. You understand that no matter how much you care, it is impossible to change someone who does not wish to change. No amount of work can get through to someone if they've made the choice for themselves to be blind. And in that realization, something shifts. You no longer fight to be in control, and you begin fighting to be at peace. This is where real emotional development starts. You begin realizing that loving too much isn't love, it's attachment. It's the desperation to control the outcome because you're terrified of loss. But love, true love, doesn't control, it flows. It gives generously but knows when to pull away. It places boundaries, not walls. When you let go of caring in the desperate way, when you quit needing to fix, prove, win someone's approval, you begin to look at yourself differently. You come to understand that you were never losing them. You were losing yourself in your attempt to cling. And here's the irony. The minute you exit that control cycle, the energy dynamic flips. The individual who used to take your over effort for granted starts noticing the silence. They begin to wonder why you're not responding, why you're not pursuing, why your attention seems far off. Your serenity becomes strange, and strange things bring curiosity. That's when their thinking begins to shift, not because you pleaded with them, but because you quit supplying the emotional system that kept them complacent. But the goal isn't to make them change. The goal is to break your own pattern, to detach from that emotional tug of war and stand firm in your self-worth. You're not withdrawing to punish, you're withdrawing to protect. You're not walking away to prove something, you're walking away because peace feels better than chaos. And that's the actual change when you see that the only thing you ever really had control over was yourself, your responses, your attention, your boundaries. That's power. Because once you're no longer reacting from fear, guilt, or the desire to be heard, you're untouchable. The turmoil surrounding you can rage all it likes, but you stay anchored, centered, and complete. Get out of the business of feeding what is draining you. Leave life to the dynamics that feed on your confusion. The minute you lose interest in that toxic, overbearing manner, you enter your calm, and calm is infectious. Control becomes obsolete when peace fills its space. And the moment you experience that level of freedom, you'll never again agree to trade your sanity for someone else's comfort. There's a turning point that occurs way down deep in you when you finally make up your mind that you're finished with begging to be noticed. It's not loud, but it's strong. It's not anger. It's not revenge. It's awareness. Awareness that your value was never ever meant to have to be demonstrated to anyone. When you stop carrying that desperate, people-pleasing way, you stop seeking closure from others who were never capable of offering it. You stop requiring validation from those who couldn't even see you when you were standing right in front of them. That's when your self-worth starts rewriting the entire narrative. When you begin to remember who you are, everything shifts. You cease to come at love, friendship, and relationship from a position of fear. You cease to try out for parts you were born to play. You begin to walk differently, not with arrogance, but with confidence. You know that your generosity is a gift, not a burden. Your time is precious, not something to be used. Your presence is a privilege, not an entitlement. And when you get to where you are living that truth, you don't beg for someone to remain. You just give them permission to leave because you believe what's meant for you won't have to be pursued. This is where real empowerment starts. When your own value is stable, you no longer need others to complete you. You're not holding out for them to tell you how important you are or acknowledge your work. You've already got that figured out. And as for that quiet confidence, that self-assurance, it rings louder than any words can possibly do. People sense it. The same people who ignored you start paying attention to the glow. They can feel that something's different, that you're no longer emotionally attached to their validation, and that's when they start to see things in a different way. The fact is, self-worth doesn't scream, it doesn't argue or justify, it just is. It states, I am aware of my worth no matter if you are or not. And that sort of vibration is impenetrable. It doesn't have to pursue because it magnetizes. It doesn't have to justify because it is truth. And that's when people's minds begin to shift, when they see that the one they used to dismiss now glides with a peace they can't interrupt. But here's the goodness of it, say, when your self-worth increases, your expectations increase too. You no longer accept what sucks the energy from you. You no longer accept half effort, half love, half presence. You no longer accept confusion masquerading as connection. You begin to choose yourself, not selfishly, but self-honorably, because you finally realize you can't give from an empty cup. You can't love with depth if that love continues to rob you of your peace. And when you do that flip, the whole dynamic reprograms itself. The one who used to think you'd never leave starts to feel the space. They begin to see the value of what they've lost. The thing now is, you're not waiting for them to see. You're not working for their eyes. You've moved beyond needing their approval because you've given yourself the one thing they never could: unconditional acceptance. That's what occurs when your self-worth is at the helm. You begin living from truth, not fear, from fullness, not deficiency. And once you get to that place, nobody can control you with silence, with games, or with inconsistency again, because you now recognize it for what it truly is, not a statement of your worth, but a statement of theirs. So when you cease caring in that anxious, approval, dependent manner, and begin to care in a centered, self-respecting one, everything about you shifts: your energy, your boundaries, your peace. And that's when life begins to reflect back the respect, love, and loyalty you've been freely offering away, because self-worth isn't learned, it's remembered. And when you remember who you are, you'll never have to beg to be seen anymore. Energy always precedes words. It's not what you say, it's what you emit. You can say to someone that you're fine all day. If your energy still emits that you're still seeking their validation, they will notice. This is what I refer to as a subconscious mirror effect. Others mirror back to you how you treat yourself. When you give up caring in that needful, approval-oriented manner and begin treating yourself with genuine respect, others start to respond to that energy without you ever even having to ask for it. You see, the subconscious is always observing, not only yours, everybody's. We tune into tone, posture, presence, and confidence. When you respect yourself, it's not only visible, it's palpable. You begin to move differently. You speak confidently rather than uncertainly. You refrain from over-explaining, over-jiving, over-apologizing. And in that change, others unconsciously realign how they treat you. They cease pushing boundaries because your energy silently communicates there are boundaries. They cease testing your value because you've already established it. It's crazy how this is, but just consider it. When you used to overdo for other people, what did they do? They backed away. When you overgave, they undergave, not necessarily because they were always attempting to take something from you. Sometimes it's simply human nature. The subconscious wants balance. If one person is over giving, the other naturally pulls back. The second you cease doing that, the second you begin treating yourself as worthwhile, the balance shifts. Suddenly they lean in, they text first, they notice more. Why? Because they're reflecting back the new energy you're emitting. And the beauty of it is, you don't need to declare it. You don't need to post quotes or give public notice of your new boundaries. When you change on the inside, the outside world naturally adjusts. People sense it in your silence, in your equanimity, in the fact that you no longer react to things that used to push you. That peace that comes from confidence speaks louder than any conflict ever could. You're teaching without teaching, revealing without revealing. But that's where the real magic occurs. The moment you realize that everyone is a mirror, you cease to take things personally. You cease to ask, why are they doing this to me? And begin to ask, what am I allowing and what am I projecting? That single question revolutionizes your life because rather than concentrating on how to repair people, you concentrate on getting your own energy in alignment. And when that's in alignment, things around you start to change naturally. That's why you can't be phony about self-respect. You can't be pretending to be aloof or self-assured in order to provoke a reaction. The subconscious will tell. You can only draw respect when you believe you deserve it. You can only ask presence when you've put the begging for attention behind you. And when that conviction is your foundation, people can't help but react in a different way. They'll treat you as you treat yourself. That's the law of reflection. So when you no longer care about being liked and care more about being aligned, the whole energy field around you shifts. You begin to move with a silent authority that does not seek permission. You cease to pursue relationships and instead magnetize the right ones. You see that you do not have to prove yourself to anyone. Your energy already does the talking. And here's the truth: once you're a master of this mirror effect, life is lighter because you realize that all that you go through is feedback. If people begin to treat you with greater respect, it's because you've increased your own bar. If they move away because your energy no longer aligns with theirs, and that's okay, you cease to chase connections and begin to attract alignment. That's the subconscious mirror in action. You've shifted your perception of yourself, and now the world simply has no other option but to perceive you differently as well. There's a time in every person's development when you come to understand peace is better than attention. That's emotional independence. It doesn't mean you're cutting people off or acting like you don't care. It means you're no longer letting your emotions be controlled by another person's inconsistency. Art of being okay, truly okay, whether they text or stay silent, whether they show up or disappear. Because when your peace depends on their presence, you've given away the keys to your own power. But when you learn to hold that peace within yourself, that's when everything changes. See, emotional independence isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's the understanding that love, validation, and stability must begin from the inside out. When you're emotionally dependent, you take a wild ride on an emotional roller coaster that you didn't even construct. You ride up one day because they said the right thing, and you ride down the next because they didn't react the way you wanted them to. And before you know it, your happiness is a hostage of someone else's actions. That's not connection, that's captivity. As you begin to create your own emotional core, you reclaim your power, you cease to react and begin to respond. You start to establish a firm foundation within yourself, one that no one can destabilize. You begin to like your own presence. You become comfortable with your aloneness rather than fearful of your silence. And when that occurs, your energy becomes, I'm complete and I choose you, instead of, I need you. That's different. Need follows, choice draws. And that's the catch. When you no longer require someone to complete you, people notice. You become lighter, freer, more attractive. You're no longer emotionally tugging on others. You're just existing. That serenity, that stability, it doesn't come around often. And in a world where everybody's attempting to control results or establish validity, that kind of emotional freedom is like light in darkness. Consider this: how many times have you attempted to hold someone near by trying harder, giving more, or showing your devotion, only to feel depleted and ignored? That's the lure of emotional dependency. You bleed from emptiness, wanting them to fill the void, but it never happens because what you're actually hungry for isn't them. It's the sense of security you believe they offer. The fact is, safety only lasts until you learn to construct it in yourself. When you get to that place, your expectations change. You cease pursing uncertain love and begin to appreciate peace. You cease confusing emotional turmoil with passion. You come to realize that love shouldn't feel like worry. Healthy love, real love, builds on your peace. It doesn't takes it. And from that knowledge, you cease accepting relationships that suck the life out of you just to live. And ironically, it is at this time that people begin noticing you in a different way. The same ones who previously took your attention for granted begin to wonder why your energy seems unattainable to them now. They get the feeling that you're no longer emotionally available to drama, games, uncertainty. You're not holding back, you're guarding your peace, and that makes you strong because here's the reality. Emotional freedom doesn't equal not caring. It equals learning how to care without losing yourself. You can love hard and still learn when to let go. You can give without draining yourself. You can feel attachment without getting confused. That equilibrium is where real power resides. So when you no longer care in that anxious, dependent manner, you no longer exist at the whims of someone else's mood swings and attention spans, you become your own anchor, your own storm center. And that type of emotional freedom, that's what attracts people. Because nothing is more attractive than someone who's okay with themselves. There's a peace you get when you finally release holding so hard to what you want and begin trusting what's yours. That's the difference between attachment and alignment, and it makes all the difference. Attachment is heavy, it's driven by fear, by the desire to control, by the idea that if you let go, you'll lose. But alignment is light, it's trust. It's understanding that what's in your best interest can't be overlooked, and what isn't in your best interest will fall away regardless of how tightly you grasp it. The universe doesn't answer to desperation, it answers to energy that's clear, confident, and open. When you're attached, you put out a vibration that says, I don't think I can be fine without this. Whether it's a person, a relationship, or a project, that energy pushes away what you're attempting to bring in. You're not flowing, you're forcing. You're attempting to control the universe rather than aligning with what is for your path. And that's why everything begins to feel resistant, why doors shut, why people recede. It's not punishment, it's realignment. It's life attempting to get you back on track. The instant you really release, something amazing occurs. You begin to feel lighter, the anxiety dissipates. You cease interpreting every text, every silence, every signal. You go from wondering, why is this not working, to telling yourself, if it's for me, it'll remain easily. That letting go is not weakness. It's strength at its greatest level because it's an act of power to trust. It's a demonstration of faith to let go of something you cherish, believing that if it's in alignment, it'll come back. And if not, it was never yours to start with. Alignment is about clarity. It's about being able to say, this is who I am, this is what I want, and I trust the process. When you're in alignment, your energy is cohesive. You're not toggling back and forth between fear and trust, between pursuing and abandoning. You're rooted. You're concentrating on being the best version of yourself, and that energy begins to draw in everything that resonates at your frequency. That's when synchronicities begin to occur. The right people, the right opportunities, the right timing, because the universe doesn't work on control, it works on frequency. Here's the truth. You can't attract peace from a place of panic. You can't attract love from a place of lack. Whatever energy you send out, you receive back multiplied. So when you quit carrying in this clingy, scared way and begin trusting your own power, you become magnetic. The universe makes it halfway. Life begins to unfurl rather than you having to pursue it down. The things that used to feel out of reach begin falling into place, not because you pushed, but because you aligned with them. And this isn't just for people. It's all about that dreams, success, healing. When you're holding on to how it has to be, you cut off the flow. When you're in alignment with who you are and what you value, the how takes care of itself. You no longer pursue results, you magnetize them. You're no longer attempting to manage the story, you're co-creating it. It's then that life begins to less resemble a struggle and more resemble a dance. And the best part, when you stop gripping so tightly, the things meant for you stay effortlessly. You don't have to beg them to stay or fight to keep them. They fit naturally into your life because they match your frequency. The wrong things fall away, but the right ones feel calm, no anxiety, no guessing, just peace. So stop attaching to what you think you need. Begin to align with what you are. Release timelines, expectations, and fear. Because when your energy changes from attachment to alignment, the universe begins to move in your direction. You won't have to chase anymore. What's yours will find you. And when it does, you'll understand why every closed door and silent goodbye was part of your realignment. It's funny how people don't really notice the weight of your presence until it's gone. While you're there, consistent, giving, supportive, they get used to the comfort of your energy. They become accustomed to you arriving, to you hearing, to you giving care even when they do not reciprocate the effort. But as soon as you withdraw your energy, as soon as you discontinue nourishing the connection that you alone had been maintaining, Silence begins to speak more powerfully than ever words possibly could. They start feeling the lack of something that was once taken for granted by them, and that is when their mind starts to change. Your energy is strong. It's not what you do, it's who you are when you present yourself to someone. When you care deeply, others can feel it. When you're consistent, reliable, and emotionally available, that then becomes an unseen cord they come to anchor themselves to. So when suddenly that thread is pulled away, just your presence they miss. It's the sense of being looked at, held up, and protected. They don't miss you first, they miss what your energy provided. And gradually, that becomes clear and it begins to reverberate in the places you once occupied. When you choose not to care in that overextending, people pleasing manner, it's not about hurting anyone, it's about picking peace over chaos, self respect over desperation. You're not leaving to prove your worth, you're leaving because you finally remember it. And when you draw back your energy, the dynamic gets uncovered. You begin to realize who was actually invested and who was just comfortable. Some will freak out when they realize you're gone, others will disappear quietly. Either way, it's clarity because energy doesn't lie, it reveals truth. And here's the part that most don't anticipate: your silence will accomplish what your words never could. You don't need to argue, you don't need to explain, and you don't need to pursue understanding. When your energy is gone, it says everything. It compels reflection. They start to reenact moments, ask themselves why things feel different, and ask themselves why the serenity they used to feel in your presence is gone. That's when they start understanding your worth, because human beings do not usually value peace until they revert to turmoil. But the thing is, you cannot retreat just so that they can understand what they have lost. That's also attachment by another name. You need to draw back because your spirit is exhausted from being drained, because you should have the same sense of care you show, because your energy needs to be given, not taken. The intention isn't to get them to pursue you. The intention is to return home to yourself. When that is your intention, your silence has power, not manipulation. And something amazing happens when you do this. You leave an energetic space that can't be discounted. People feel it deeply. The same people who thought you'd always be around begin to notice that the world is a little colder without your heat. They may not tell you immediately. They sense it in how their day doesn't quite land, because your presence was never small, it was holding, and once it's lost, all that they ever took for granted becomes blindingly obvious. But here's the real growth: you're no longer waiting for them to realize it. Whether they change, return, or stay gone, it doesn't matter, because your focus has shifted. You're no longer living to be noticed, you're living to be aligned. You've stopped pouring into what doesn't pour back, and in doing so, you've made room for energy that matches your own. So, yes, when you stop caring, their mind shifts, but so does yours. They may sense the lack of your energy, but you'll sense the serenity of finally getting it back. And that's the true victory. Because the person who learns to be okay in their own silence is always the person who walks away stronger. Everything we've discussed just brings you here. The last flip, the one that turns everything, it's when you transition from needing to choosing, when you cease asking, why didn't they choose me? And begin to say, I choose myself. That's when life opens for you. Because once you're no longer motivated by necessity, you become motivated by clarity. You no longer accept crumbs because you recall that you never were supposed to beg for a place at any table. You were supposed to create your own. When you no longer feel the need to be chosen, you begin to see that the true power was always yours. You're not waiting around for someone to tell you that you're okay. You're not seeking fleeting attention. You're moving with intention. You've understood that peace, self-confidence, and love begin within, and now your vibration shows it wherever you are. That's when others notice the difference. That's when they begin telling you you've changed. But the reality is, you didn't change. You simply stopped settling. You stopped apologizing for your standards. You ceased to shrink to accommodate others. And let's get real, that's when all things begin to go your way, because when you pick yourself, the universe returns in kind. You start to attract individuals who appreciate your peace, opportunities that serve your purpose, and experiences that nourish your spirit. You come to understand that love can't have to feel like fighting for existence. Success doesn't have to stem from struggle. Happiness doesn't have to be borrowed. You are the source. That's when you transition from pursuing love to personifying it, from needing approval to giving it, from wishing for someone to appreciate you to knowing they can't help but adore you. Because when you decide to love yourself, to fully unapologetically, you begin to attract everything that has been waiting on you all along. And if you happen to be reading this tonight, and if it's speaking to something in the depths of you, don't merely listen. Do it. Don't wait for somebody else to make a change. You are the change. The part of you that is confident, that is calm, that is self assured, they're already inside of you. All you need to do is to stop running after what's depleting you and simply select what nourishes you. And listen, if this message resonated, if you felt that click, I want you to do something now, like this message, pass it along to someone who needs to know, and make sure you subscribe and hit the little bell icon so you never miss another reminder of your power. Because you need to be reminded over and over again that your energy is precious, your peace is holy, and your value is non negotiable. Vibev, keep growing, keep trusting, and above all, keep choosing you every day. Because when you cease to care about being chosen and begin choosing yourself, everything, and I mean everything, starts to fall into place for you.